Meghan, all three of those propositions get voted down. And really, we don't know what comes next. There's kind of a wide range of what's on the table. So instead of us speculating about that, we reached out to our good friend Craig Morgan from PHNX, has done an unbelievable job covering the Coyotes and really has been up to date on all of this. And so I think we've got him here. Yes, there he is. Craig, how's it going, sir?
What's up, guys? What are you talking about? Something happened here yesterday?
Oh,
Yeah, that's what I thought. I saw some on Twitter.
Coyotes business as usual. What are you talking about?
Hey, your voice doesn't sound too hoarse yet from all the radio hits you've been having to do and your own show and all that. How are you holding up?
Well, a lot better this morning than I was last night. I got about 2.5 hours of sleep.
Woo.
And, you know, we've all already expressed on our show this sort of existential crisis we were feeling, thinking that this was it, that the Coyotes were finally leaving Arizona. You've seen the reports. Greg Wyshynski put it out that they're going to be playing at Mullet Arena. I actually said that on 2 radio shows this morning with a Vancouver radio station. Then I was also on the Jeff Merrick show. I know that to be true, but beyond that, guys, I now think that there's a path forward for the Coyotes in Arizona, and I didn't think that when I went to bed last night. So that's a crazy turn of events, but like I said, that's business as usual with the Coyotes. I've been on this roller coaster for 2+ decades, and it continues.
So, all right, well, let's dive into that a little bit, because I was thinking that, here we were heading down kind of a doom and gloom
path back through Phoenix
conversation. Yeah. So propositions 301, 302, 303 all fail yesterday at the ballot. Can you just kind of, for people who don't fully know what all that encapsulated, can you just kind of walk through what that meant and how there is maybe a path forward now?
Sure. Or
what the paths forward could be, I guess.
The Coyotes' proposed arena and entertainment district on the south bank of the Salt River in Tempe went to referendum in the city of Tempe. Now, they made that decision a while back because they knew it was going to be challenged anyway. It would have gone to referendum one way or the other. Had they waited for an opposition group to challenge it, it would have taken until August for this to go to referendum. So it would have slowed down the timeline on what they hoped would be breaking ground on their new arena. Well, of course, it didn't pass. In fact, it was crushed yesterday, which was a complete surprise to all of my sources internally, both with the city of Tempe and with the Coyotes. They had conducted their own internal polling, and they thought they had as great as a 10-point lead. So,
wow.
I don't know how your polling is that dramatically off. They thought they were going to get 56, 57% of the vote. That's what the opposition got. So,
holy smokes.
You probably didn't hire the right polling firm, or you weren't looking at the right things, because that was an abject failure to believe that you were going to be celebrating that night and then have the numbers pop up. And it was like a funeral in that place afterward. I was at the Tempe Wins party. So at that point, you're looking at the situation. They've already been kicked out of Glendale. I still don't think there's any path back to Glendale, and I don't know why there would be, because it was never financially viable, and the commissioner of the NHL said so, that they would not be staying in Glendale. So you look around the valley, they can't be a tenant in the Suns arena, because that was the building they left for those very reasons. They couldn't make the revenue that they needed to as a tenant in an NBA arena. Well, what other options are there? There are none. So you looked at it at that point, and with Alex Morello's track record in Glendale, with the failure to pay bills, with the athletic story, and now this failed campaign, I think everybody thought this is the end. They're leaving. There's no path forward in Arizona. I don't know what's going to come of the options here, but I have great faith in the source that told me that there's a path forward. We've already seen a couple of tweets, Alex Morello telling Andy Strickland that they want to be, the plan is to be in Arizona. Of course, Greg Wyshynski and I both reported this morning that they're going to play in Mullet next year, but I do think that there are options, viable options, that they're going to start considering immediately.
Wow. So I want to go back to what you were just talking about there with the Suns, the Suns arena, because I know that was something that had been talked about a bit. Of could you get in with the new Suns owner, Nikola Jokic's best friend? Could you get in with him? Could there be renovations done to that building to make it suitable for hockey? Craig, you're saying that as of right now, that is not an option.
Well, as a tenant, no. Like the only way that would work is if Matt Ishbia wanted to turn around and buy the Arizona Coyotes if they're available right after he just bought the Phoenix Suns, which is one hell of a financial commitment to make in such a short period of time.
Quite the
It
shopping
could work
spree.
then, because then you're getting all those ancillary revenues that you don't have access to otherwise is as a tenant. And if you look around the NHL at the shared arenas, it's not a situation where an NHL team is playing in an NBA arena. The NHL either owns it or the owner owns both of the teams.
Yep.
You have to have that arrangement because the NHL in particular, its revenue is driven by the arena, whether it's naming rights or corporate sponsorships. That's where the vast majority of the money is coming from. You're not getting it from the TV deals or the radio deals because they're nowhere near as lucrative as they are in the other three sports.
Craig, I was wondering on the political component in all of this, if there are maybe some positives to derive. I heard there was something like a 30% turnout for the voting for this. It probably leaned on the 65 plus crowd too. But I'm wondering if born from this disappointment that the Coyotes base will be incentivized to kind of rally around this team moving forward in any other paths forward that there might be in seeing, wow, this option was on the table. The doomsday clock is ticking. Do you think that maybe this could rally the base and galvanize them?
Well, maybe it depends on the situation, right? Like if they go to another municipality where you would require a public vote, like Mesa. Mesa is another one of those possibilities that has been talked about, whether it's a location along the Salt River or Fiesta Mall. You might have to go to a public vote again. And I guess voter turnout, I mean, we want to see that in terms of democracy, but they didn't manage the voter turnout well. They didn't message very well in this election. I don't think they got to know Tempe voters and what mattered to them. And I think it showed in this election. So at least they could take a lesson from that in learning how to message better. But in terms of the voter turnout, the other thing that I would say, looking at the opposition campaign, God, it was ugly politics, guys. It was, there were outright lies and misinformation being floated by the opposition campaign. I know they don't care because they won, and that's the game in politics, but they ran a really slimy campaign. It was gross to watch. So I have a hard time taking any positives away from that.
Yeah. So building off that with the voter turnout question, one, do you think that was maybe the disappointing voter turnout is what led to the polling being so off? And then two,
the voter turnout was higher. It was a record turnout.
Oh, really? No.
Yeah, so they were really happy with the turnout. In fact, that was one of the narratives going into that party last night. They were really happy with the voter turnout because they thought it favored them. Well, I have no idea how they thought that, how they were so wrong in reading the electorate, other than they hired the wrong people to analyze that electorate and run their campaign.
And so that was kind of my next question was, did they just kind of miss the mark? Did they not? Because I've seen a lot of conversation that, you know, the opposition did a lot more campaigning, it seemed like, than the Tempe Wins group. Did they just, maybe, was it a little bit of overconfidence? They didn't campaign the way they needed to, just didn't put the money that the opposition did? Do you have anything that you can kind of point to that you think maybe this is where it broke down? Or, I mean, is it just kind of everyone's stunned right now because it went so against what we thought?
Well, they certainly didn't run an experienced looking campaign. So that's the starting point. But then when you look at the money spent, I know the Arizona Republic had a figure that the opposition only spent $35,000, which was, it's an absurd assertion. They probably spent $2 million. There was union money behind the opposition, and that was the big force behind it. So, and they hired the right people. They had experienced people on the campaign trail running it. So you have that element of experience, but then they got outspent, and I don't understand that at all. You knew what was at stake here. You looked at the scale of this project and the potential revenue that Alex Morello was looking at. Why on earth would you not go all in on spending to run the right kind of campaign, the most effective campaign, the campaign that was going to win this? If it cost you $4 million, why wouldn't you do that given the potential impulse? It baffles me. I still don't understand why they did what they did.
Meghan, do you have
what
any?
do you think the motivation was from out-of-state parties' involvement in Arizona local elections?
Union. They wanted to unionize the entire project, and that's Lauren Kuby, one of the key members of the opposition. She's very closely affiliated. I'm guessing she profited from that relationship with an out-of-state based union. They wanted this entire project to be constructed by unions, and many of those workers, because Arizona doesn't have enough union workers in certain areas, would have come from out of state. So they were willing to give jobs on this project to out of state workers that would be union workers rather than giving them to Arizona workers. That was a contentious point, and one that was brought up by a couple of former mayors, Hugh Hallman and Neil Giuliano. But again, it didn't seem to register with people. It didn't seem to matter. Somehow the Coyotes didn't message well enough on some key points like that one. Like they were handing jobs out of state workers rather than giving them to Arizona workers.
Right. So I just got a couple more for you here, Craig. Then we'll let you go, catch your breath and get some sleep. But I just want kind of a clarification, because I've seen a lot of conflicting reports. What percentage, had this gone through, how much of the cost would have been passed on to the taxpayers? Because I know that was something that a lot of people talked about. Was there a substantial cost going to the taxpayers? I've seen stuff from it would cost taxpayers a lot to this was all being funded privately.
Well, it was being funded privately. The tax component of this deal was within the district itself. The Coyotes were going to use a portion of the sales tax to pay down the debt. That's how the tax worked. There was no burden on Tempe taxpayers. If you didn't go to the district, you would literally pay zero for this project. That was what the brilliance of the construction of this project, and that's why they're calling it, and it was probably the best constructed arena deal in American sports history.
Yeah.
They really had a good plan in place. But again, the opposition kept messaging, oh, they're giving taxpayer money away, and people believed it. They didn't even read the deal. There were a lot of misinformed voters out there. Again, the only way you were going to pay for it is if you showed up on the district, you went to a game, or you went to a restaurant, or you stayed at a hotel, or went to a shop. Portion of that sales tax was going to be used to pay down the debt. That's it. That was the only tax component. And I'll say this, there were other components of this deal when it was originally constructed. Tempe did a masterful job of protecting themselves from any sort of liability. Credit their city staff, credit Hugh Hallman, who I mentioned earlier, for constructing a really good deal for the city. And yet the voters voted it down, and now they're left with a landfill, which, as Neil Giuliano told me last night, will probably still be there when he dies, because it's already been there for 7 decades. There's not a better deal out there. It's a pipe dream for them to believe that this is going to be developed into something else.
I remember you telling Meghan and I that when we were down in Arizona and you drove us by it. You were like, yeah, that's a landfill. And if this doesn't pass, it's going to stay a landfill. Last one for you, Craig, and it's kind of a quick one. Have you heard from any of the players? Just what's kind of the general sense on that side of it? Because we saw the tweet from Clayton Keller last night. Have you heard really any kind of sense beyond that?
No, not from the current players. We were actually supposed to have Christian Fisher on the show today, but the Coyotes pulled him back for obvious reasons. I've heard from a ton of former players. I lost count at some point last night of the former players texting me. They're all crushed by this, which tells you how much this market and this team still meant to them in spite of all the struggles. But we have not heard from any of the current players yet, other than, like you said, their forays into social media where Clayton Keller is tweeting an emoji.
Yeah, I mean, really, Craig, I've talked to you about it. I think Arizona is a really important market for the NHL and the game of hockey to continue to grow. I really do. I hope, what you were saying there, I hope there is a path forward to stay in Phoenix or just Arizona in general, because I think it's a really important market for the league. But I mean, fantastic work as always, Craig. You guys do such great work down there, and I'm sure we'll be touching base a lot more here over the next few weeks as this stuff kind of continues to develop. But go rest up, get some sleep. We appreciate it a lot, Craig.
Yeah, if nothing else, I'll see you guys at the draft, right?
Yeah.
Looking forward to, we got that, right? We've always got that. Craig Morgan, PHNX, thanks so much,
Thanks,
man.
Craig.
See you guys.